we do this?
Well, do the display preferences up somewhere? This one. Right in the middle there. CocoaHeads TV. All those Samsung phones, apparently. You've obviously streamed before. That's your other system. You want a mirror?
Now it's all squidgy.
No, it's caught up. So you'll be limited by the 1080p res of the TVs. Hey?
I'm leaving it to the end of her session.
Okay. Renault's taking over, right? Yes. Yep. Yep, that's all right. You don't need me. I'm good. Would you like a chair or something? A stool to sit on?
That's right.
All right.
It's just, everything's all squidgy.
So next up, we have Audrey Tam. So over to you, Audrey.
Is it working? Yeah, it's working. Okie dokie. All right. So, what I did during WWDC week.
You're right. Just keep talking.
Okay, 2 years ago, Ray Wenderlich decided it would be a really cool idea if we took an idea that was announced on the Monday of WWDC and published a tutorial about it at the end of WWDC. And he asked me to do it, and I wrote about CoreML. And last year, I wrote about CreateML and to recreate. And this year, it was pretty obvious I had to write about SwiftUI. So I did. This came out Monday night about 11 p.m., which was 9 a.m. In the east coast of the US. So, yes, you can go and look at it. Okay, now the problem was, that's not it. Problem was that Apple knew everybody was going to want to do this, and so they wrote this series of, really detailed tutorials themselves. And so, the app they did was one of these sort of list, they call it a list app, table views and things like that. And so you can go and have a look at that. So I decided that I was going to do this app instead. So if any of you have ever done iOS Apprentice, from Ray Wenderlich, and you did the Bullseye app, so it has a random number between 1 and 100, and it's got a slider, and you have to move the slider and try and get as close as you can to that number, and you get a score and stuff like that. So I did a version called RG Bullseye, and you have to match the color. Okay? So I think if you put lots of green and blue and you get yellow. No, that's not right. It doesn't look. So graphic designers usually are itching to get their hands on this and show me how to do it right. Less blue?
Team effort, guys. Come on.
Yeah, come on.
More green. Lots of red.
Less green. More red. More green? You're okay. So, anyway, you can see it's a lot better than Bullseye because you got that sort of immediate feedback on it. And, well, obviously the thing you want to put on it is a timer. But anyway, so it does a score and things like that. So it does similar things to what Bullseye does. So that's the storyboard for it, and here you can see what the storyboard looks like. Right? So that's all the constraints and whatnot. And I think it uses stack views, I'm not sure. So that's that one, and it has a view controller, and the view controller has to connect up, of course, all of the...
So this is UIKit?
This is the UIKit version. So I wrote this back in 2015 for our WDevCon 2016, right? And it's been sort of updated to Swift 5-ish, and yeah, sort of Swifty. But yeah, so, you know, back in the old days, this is what you had to do. You connect up all your objects, and then the key thing that's happening here is whenever the slider moves, you update the color of the target, sorry, of the guess, and you update the little text that's telling you what the RGB values are. Okay, so that's what you had to do. Okay, so here is, oh wait, let me show you the rest of it. So here's the game. So there's a game class, Bullseye game, where you sort of write things like you're going to do, and there's an RGB extension on UI color, so you can package up your RGB stuff. So this is all the code that's involved in it, right? Okay, that's it. Swift UI, that's it. All of it, including the preview. So that's the preview code down here. That is all of it. Doesn't do the little score things at the bottom, but it does the basic functionality of the app. Okay, so what you need to, so it's, you have a struct, content view, and you can put in variables in here. There are these state variables. Let me try and get something bigger. Okay, so you got some state variables. So that's the new concept that you need for Swift UI, which you didn't have in UIKit. But you know, that's just perfectly ordinary sort of code there. Then you have all these vertical stacks and horizontal stacks. Okay, so you just basically say, I want all these different things stuck into stacks. This is basically the sort of thing I would have done in the storyboard, build up my user interface using stack views. But that's all you have to do. Okay? And the code that updates the text values and updates the color values, it's all embedded. So instead, so what happens is, where are the sliders? So here are my sliders. And you see this little dollar? So So that means that's a binding. It's like when you pass the address of your object in the C++ program. So you're passing a reference to it. And so it's read-write access to this variable. So every time there's a change to the R value, the G value, or the B value, it immediately updates the user interface. Okay, so it's a little bit reactive stuff going on here. And so yeah, so as soon as these things change, here's my color block, the gray thing over here. The color block is being updated immediately as the sliders move. Okay, I didn't have to put any actions on the slider. The action is actually happening where the color is being added to the rectangle. Okay, and then there's these little text fields down here that are supposed to be saying what the RGB value is, and they're just there. When you define the text view, you define what you want the text to be, and that's, you know, interpolation just like you're used to. Yeah, so that's it. There's a button. Now, some of you may have done an extension on Alert View Controller because you were fed up, you know, having to do that long-winded thing every time you wanted an alert. Maybe you guys don't use alerts, but so, you know, Alert View Controllers and the Action Sheet Controller, you know, it's really, they made it a lot more complicated to produce one. So a lot of people have actually defined like the simplest possible alert controller. It has an OK button or something like that. That's built in. So you can create an alert that basically just had an OK button and a message and a title, you know, just like the old days where that's all you had to do. The only complication is you have to put a dot presentation modifier, and this is basically a Boolean that you set when you want that alert to appear. Okay, so it was initialized to false. The button action, when I say hit me, the button action sets it to true. The alert pops up. The user says OK. That sets it back to false. So it then goes away. Okay. What happened here was I created a subview called color slider. And so at any point you can do something like that. So let's say the command, you guys are all accustomed to the command menu. The command menu has that, oh dear, that's very small. Okay. Take my word for it. The command view has like jump to definition, show quick help, you know, that kind of stuff that you're used to. But it also has extract subview. So it's just like the refactor, you know, extract to method that you're used to. So you're encouraged to create reusable subviews, just like you would create reusable functions. Well, you know, once you see that you want to copy and paste something, you create a function. Once you see that you want to copy and paste a view, you create a subview. And SwiftUI takes care of making it all efficient underneath. Okay, so there's a edit. Whoops, and just like it works the same way as extracting methods. But there's a bit more in the, then down here, there's also embed in HStack and embed in VStack. Okay, so if you're used to using stack views in Storyboard, what you can do in Storyboard is you can drag a whole bunch of things into your view, and then you can select them all and say, embed these all in a vertical stack or a horizontal stack. That's not, you can't quite do that yet. In Xcode, I imagine they're going to fix that. At the moment, all you can do is select one thing and embed that one thing in an HStack or a VStack. Okay? So the tutorial basically shows you all these different ways of building up your view declaratively. There is one thing that I didn't do in this tutorial that I tried out earlier today. So let's create a new one. So it's just a single view app that you're used to. The key thing is that use Swift UI. Okay. And give it a name. Okay, and the first thing you're going to notice is there is no storyboard. There's a launch storyboard, but there's no like, regular storyboard. Okay? And this is where you get the preview. And it says hello world. Okay. Now, the thing I didn't put in the tutorial as well is you can only have one top level view. All right, so if I put another text in there, let's say copy this text and put another one in, it's going to complain. Right? You also cannot have a V stack or an H stack. Come on. You can't have an empty V stack or H stack. Okay? So as soon as you put more than one thing in there, it wants to know, is it horizontal or vertical? Okay? And as soon as you insert a V stack, like if you were to insert a V stack, say using the library, oops, come back here. Okay, it automatically puts a text placeholder in for you. But what I didn't, yes, it doesn't like it because the text is sitting on the outside now. So let's see if we can do something about that. No, it's not going to do that, okay. But, you know, if any of you like to do all of your layout in code, it's perfect. Okay, but what else you can do is you can, say, open up your library again, and you can, I don't know, get a slider. And you can drag the slider Yeah. Well, part of it is because for Ray Wendelit, we have 2 space indentations, and it obviously is doing something else. But yeah, you have to keep fixing the indentation. But yeah, it stays in sync. What you see in the preview and what you see in your code, completely in sync. Okay? Which is quite an experience for you if you've ever used a storyboard or something like that. Okay, so let me show you this one. Now, what I haven't figured out is I can't get it to show the preview in landscape. Anyway, so down here that's the live preview button. And my colleagues tell me that if you have an iOS 13 device attached, that will deploy it onto your device.
It's debugging.
Hmm?
It's debugging.
Is it?
Let's do debugging view.
Oh, no, it doesn't do that. So the guys on the, really? The guys on Slack said that it goes onto your device.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's correct, yes.
Because it doesn't do anything for me, because I haven't got an iOS 13 phone. Okay, so you can, oh yeah, there's an but live preview is what it usually does. And let's see. Come on, you. It's not behaving. What you're on, oh, there it is. Okay, down here. Oh, you didn't like that. Hold on. What? Yeah. But what I was trying to show you is down here. Usually there's a spinner going down there. Yeah, you have to wait till the spinner stops. But yeah, once the spinner is stopped, then yeah. It actually, you don't have to put it in a simulator. You can do everything you want.
But you can't do a simulator.
You can, I mean, I showed in the simulator, in the tutorial, because in the simulator you can put in the landscape. But yeah, you can do everything you need. In here, you can even, it does hit me, does all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what else I want to tell you. So that's them. Now, for those of you who might be afraid to install Catalina, okay, first of all, the SwiftUI app will compile and run in Xcode 11 running on Mojave. You just can't see the previews. Okay, and the previews are the most fun part. But if you just, want to muck around with it and you're willing to run in the simulator to see what's happening, then you can actually do all your SwiftUI stuff in Mojave. If you want to see the preview, then you have to install Catalina. And you can install Catalina in a volume. There's a link from the tutorial. You can install it in a volume, not a partition. And you don't have to set aside a whole bunch of, you don't have to decide how much space you have to set aside for it or anything like that. It's just really easy. I could do it. And then you can get rid of the volume when you don't want to use it anymore. And the instructions down here for switching between the two versions, I found that more reliable than holding down the Option key when you restart. So what you do is before you restart, you go in and you set your startup drive to the other one, and then you restart. Everything's fine. And yeah, so you can install Catalina, you can try all this stuff out. You don't have to worry about messing up one of the Macs. And, oh yeah, and of course, books coming out. There's a link at the bottom of the tutorial, and the top as well, to go and do this. So you can get the bundle, or you can get $10 off pre-order on SwiftUI by tutorials, and I am one of the authors. Questions?
Not so much a question. Just anyone that's interested in SwiftUI, we're going to set aside either a room or a part of the main room at the Hack Night next Wednesday for doing SwiftUI. So if you're interested in SwiftUI, whether you're at the very beginning or you're at Audrey's level, super advanced at this point, feel free to come along. We will have a spot in the room, whether it's a section of the main room or a breakout room for doing SwiftUI.
So just make sure you RSVP to Hack Night next week on meetup.com.
Because you guys have some sort of a limit, don't you? Like 30 people or something? You have a limit of 30 people, a cap?
We have a shared limit because it's shared with GDG.
Yeah.
So we're flexible on the limit, but it's very helpful if you RSVP.
You can mix and match. You can have.
Yes.
Did you try to compare the sizes when you compare with SwiftUI and compare that? What is bigger, what is small?
Well, I mean, the size of apps that we make for Ray Wenderlich.
It can be enormously higher with SwiftUI. No.
But in terms of, oops, there's a WWDC session on integrating SwiftUI. So it's just like what they did with Swift. You can mix and match Swift and Objective-C, and you can mix and match SwiftUI and UIKit. So, I was going to show you that. Hold on. Okay, you've heard that they split App Delegate into App Delegate and Scene Delegate. Okay, and the Scene Delegate is where the window goes. So your window is in the Scene Delegate. And this is it. UI Hosting Controller, Root View, Content View. Okay, Content View is the default name for this SwiftUI view. And so this basically loads your content view in as the first view shown by your window. You take that UI hosting controller, you put it into your existing app, You give it the root view of your new Swift UI view, and your Swift UI view is in your app. It's that easy. It's that easy. there's a brand new Segway controller that you put in to replace the Prepare for Segway. Okay, and that's it. So you just build your Swift UI view and stick it in your existing app. If you want to take existing data classes or structs and you want to use them in a Swift UI app, you have to make them, oh, and if their values have to update the UI, then you make them conform to bindable object and you implement did change. That's it.
What about the design patterns and the RX code?
Oh, RX? No, I'm not a reactive person.
That's a different talk, that one right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious there's something going on that's very similar to what you expect to happen in the reactive app. But whether that's what they're actually doing.
So,
Hmm?
but in the same project, you can have one Z or in the same project.
Reactive? Well, I mean, if you've got the reactive package in there as well.
I think it was asking, can you have UI kit and...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We try to wrap up, and I actually have more of an answer to your question.
Right.
Have you tried the dot environment to rotate it?
Have I tried the...
Dot environment in the previews, if you use the dot environment and orientation, you can actually have landscape. Like you can change dark mode or light mode.
That's an environment variable you can pass in.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, I had a look at all the environment variables. I didn't see one that was obvious. But which one?
It's the orientation.
No, I didn't see that.
Yep. Thank you, Audrey.
Okay. Now, how do I do this? Oh, thank you.
Won't take us long to see what's going to go. Online,
MacBook, you can just apply it to the screen. Sorry? You can just apply it to the screen, right? You have a MacBook, so you should be good. Yeah, sure.
Nope, I can give you both handheld ones or one handheld one, or do it. I can give you a mic stand, I can give you a star, or probably just handheld, I guess. Yep. Yeah, it's just a bit slow, that's all.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so if you present from there, it should go up there.
Oh, nice.
There you go. Cool, let's get you one.
Oh, sure. Do I need it or?
We only have the one wireless one. So you
Oh,
put that in a pocket.
sorry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was thinking I could just like speak out loud, but this works better,
This
I guess.
this is more important for us for the recording than it is for
Oh, sure. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. What's your name, brother? Rod. Nice meeting you, Peter.
so just with that, just talk normally and then I'll adjust the volume if we need to adjust the volume.
Oh, yeah. Sure. That works. Yeah, of course.
All right. Next up, we have a special treat. We have two Android developers coming to us to talk to us directly to the iOS community about some recent announcements that were made at Google I/O in Mountain View that happened in the month of May. So we have Peter that's going to talk first about Google Assistant, and then followed by Bramley, who is going to talk about Flutter and Jetpack Compose. And thank you guys for talking at this event and really introduce us to some of these technologies that we may not be familiar with. So Give them a big welcome and pay attention to what they're going to say because it's going to be really interesting. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Peter, and I'm a second-year student from Melbourne Uni, and I've been an RS dev for half a year now. It's my second time coming to CocoaHeads and first time speaking, so what an honor. And my talk's on Google Assistant versus Siri. It's pretty high level, so hopefully it'll be a nice break for your brain. And also I'll be leading to like the marketing and privacy implications of Google and Apple. The new generation of Google Assistant will work so fast that tapping to your phone would seem slow. This is what's been promised from the Google I/O this year. Google achieves this by bringing the machine learning models straight to your phone and then allowing your devices to process requests in real time and respond up to 10 times faster. Not to mention new features such as the driving mode and Picks for You, which essentially gives you personalized recommendations on recipes, podcasts, and events. And we all know that Google achieves this by collecting vast amounts of personal data, including your Google searches, video history, and recordings of every time you interact with the voice assistant, and all of that and much more goes into generating your favorite topics, and hence allowing Google to offer you personalized services and also advertisements. Whew. And nevertheless, here's my favorite bit from the demo.
Show me my photos from Yellowstone. The ones with animals. Send it to Justin.
All right.
And in comparison, Apple launched the new voice control this year. I don't think it's quite in the spotlight of the WWDC. But anyways, so it uses the underlying tech from Siri, and just by judging the demo, personally, I don't find it as fluid as Google Assistant, but I'll let you be the judge of that.
Open photos. Scroll up. Show numbers. 13. Click share. 3. Tim. Next field. Let's try this one today. Thumbs up emoji. Click send.
Yes, as I was saying before, so I'm aware, right? This is kind of more targeted towards the disabled users who can't really use their fingers regularly. But just say, if you're a regular user who just want to use this service, then you still kind of have to say a lot of verbs such as click and next field and send and whatnot. And also the numbers correlating to the functionalities for that matter. So that means that you still have to direct a lot of your attention towards using voice control, but then you might as well just use your fingers and get it over with, right? But in comparison, I think Google Assistant kind of intends for you to direct your attention elsewhere, where it's more worthy, and let the assistant take over on the more mundane, everyday tasks. But maybe this is more practical for actual use. We'll wait and see. And leading to the privacy philosophies, as we know, Google embraces the data collection approach wholeheartedly. And I think Google is willing to do this ultimately is because Google is aware that many average consumer probably won't care about the fact that the data is being collected on a day-to-day basis. And after all, it's been collected for years and years before any of us really had awareness of this fact. And if your data is being collected anyway, then offering it to Google means that you can get cheaper hardware and enhanced services in return, which is a +1 for many people, I guess. And what's smart about Google is that Google made it very, very clear during the I/O that you still have full control of the privacy settings, which I think is rather clever. But in response to this, Tim Cook once said that this is a fake trade-off designed to justify a business model where you are the product, not the customer. And I think this does reflect the privacy philosophies of Apple very clearly, because Apple seemed to reject the idea of personal data collection and insists that their services and products can be just as good without excessive personal data collection. And well, just in the case of Google Assistant versus Siri, right, this statement doesn't seem to hold quite true just yet. With that being said, though, Apple does collect your data to an extent, but Apple just scrambles it and then creates user segments from it. So the data collected from you cannot be traced back to you. And I think that does reflect Apple's marketing strategy to an extent as well, because keeping your privacy kind of justifies the hefty price tag on Apple devices. And that is also kind of a proof that Apple doesn't need to sell you out to the advertisers. However, I think this logic is probably a little bit harder to appreciate than Google's cheaper hardware and also enhanced services. But which approach will lead to the company having the upper hand? I guess only time will tell. Thanks.
Thanks. So my name is Bradley Turner-Jones. I've Android developer for about over 7 years, and I attended Google I/O last year and this year, along with several others from the Melbourne GDG meetup. So at I/O there was these guys, they're called the Fungineers. They handed out ice cream and slid down a van. There was augmented reality map app around the campus to explore all the different areas at the event. There was roller skating. There was the flaming lips at the concert. The front man arrived inside a balloon. And then there were some more balloons. But I don't have time to talk about that. Instead, declarative UI and reactive state management, i.e. Flutter and SwiftUI. So has anyone heard of or used Flutter? Yeah, okay, wow, cool. For those that don't know, Flutter is a cross-platform declarative UI and framework for iOS and Android. It runs natively at 120 FPS using direct rendering to the OpenGL or Vulkan graphics pipeline, enabling it to be very high performant. It's available right now in production. It's up to version 1.5. At I/O this year, Google announced Flutter for Web in technical preview. Google also announced Jetpack Compose for Android using Kotlin in technical preview, and of course SwiftUI. So here's a brief introduction to Flutter. So it's very small, but it's basically you have one build method. The build method returns your entire widget tree. So in this case, you have an app bar which has a text, the Flutter demo homepage. You have the body text with a center-aligned button clicked that many times, and then underneath that, a floating action button with a callback when it's pressed increment counter. Increment counter is up here, and it just increments a local variable called counter inside a function called setState. Whenever setState is called, it instructs the framework to re-render the entire UI. So the entire screen, depending on at what level you've called setState, from everywhere from there down is re-rendered every time that happens. And Flutter is fast enough for that to happen very rapidly. Yeah, there's 120 FPS. Also in this video, you can see there, of course, changing the code live and pressing this hot reload button, which updates the code. You can update the text or the functionality, and it's immediately running. This is in the iPhone simulator, but of course on an Android device as well. And it is this fast, so it's actually a revelation. I'm not sure exactly how that will compare to the SwiftUI's preview. It seems like the preview in SwiftUI is only for those particular widgets. It's different to running your entire app. In Flutter's case, it's your entire app that's running, and you can hot reload the entire state of your app on whatever page that you're on. It's not just for a particular widget. So it seems like that's different. If you want to know more about Flutter, there's the combined CocoaHeads, GDG Melbourne, Flutter Hack Nights, and the next one is next Wednesday. There's also Flutter Melbourne is doing a study jam in July, to be advised, which will be one night of just studying Flutter. And there's a new channel in the CocoaHeads Slack. So Jetpack Compose, which is a similar framework but only for Android using Kotlin. this was, it looks, Google is developing this in the open source. It looks like they've been working on it for about a year so far, but there's still not a huge amount of information on it. It's very bare, especially when you compare the documentation here to what Apple has produced. It's, yeah, still very much a work in progress, but hopefully the same team that did Flutter, Google has got working on Jetpack Compose. So there are areas that are quite similar between Flutter and Compose. And they're SwiftUI. So, I used to love the separation of UI and code. I used to think it's great in Android you would have XML layouts where you just write out your layouts and you can have different layouts for different device sizes. And then in Java you would wire up the code, very, very similar to what Audrey demoed for in the interface builder. A very similar approach for Android. I thought that was great. Then I ported one of my side projects to Flutter, and I have seen the light. Declarative UI is, it eliminates so many different classes of bugs, entire classes of bugs. So you don't have to worry about updating different parts of your UI at different times based on different events. Instead, you just declare that your UI is a function of your state. And you say, this is my UI, here it is, and because Flutter is performant enough to render the entire thing whenever things change, you don't have to worry about trying to update different parts at different times. It also means significantly reduced code. And the hot reload button is again a step shift in development, because instead of having to code and then deploy and wait and install and a minute or two later and you've forgotten what you're doing, instead the app is your UI preview. You don't need a UI preview, you don't need a layout editor, because you do it all in the actual application that's running in the simulator or on your actual device. So Google has seen how powerful this is and added it to Android with the Flutter team's help. It's excellent that Apple is doing the same thing. And I wonder that if this stuff wasn't announced for Android and for iOS this year, would even more people be taking up Flutter? All of this makes our lives a lot easier. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for... Yeah.
So I do some Android dev as well, and I shouldn't say that too loudly here. But I'm interested in your view on Jetpack Compose versus Flutter. I mean, would I be right in saying that you're more interested in Flutter than Jetpack, or is that just because it's been around a bit longer, or is Jetpack not as capable at the moment, being fairly new?
It's not as capable at the moment. To use it, it's only a technical preview at the moment, so you actually need to compile your own version of Android Studio, and it only works on Mac. It's not compatible with Windows. So I haven't used it. Yeah, it's great. It's definitely great that they're doing it, and I'm still going to be an Android developer. But if they hadn't done it, I would very much, if they hadn't done it, I'd probably very much prefer to be a Flutter developer in the near future.
One question I had was, so everyone on the Android side has moved to Kotlin, but Flutter uses Dart, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was just interested, how do you compare those two languages? How does Kotlin versus Dart?
Dart's actually very similar to Java, except with fewer of the annoying parts of Java. Yeah, it is fairly similar to Kotlin, Java. Like classes, curly braces, but without access modifiers and automatic getters and setters, the same as Kotlin. So they're all relatively similar, and I think lambdas in Dart are relatively similar to lambdas in Kotlin. I actually converted a Java Android project to Flutter, and significant amounts of business logic were literally copy and paste, which was actually really awesome. And then for stuff that wasn't, it was just a matter of a regular expression to remove the access modifiers because there's no public or private keywords. But other than that, very similar.
Any more questions? Yeah, a sec.
So Dart doesn't use any of the platform native controls. Oh, sorry, not Dart. Flutter doesn't use any of the platform native controls. It re-renders them all itself in OpenGL.
Yeah.
How do you think those look? I mean, what's the sort of overall effect? Does it feel 100% native, or does it feel more like a cross-platform app?
It definitely feels native, which is a surprising thing. It does. Tried it out. It seems awesome. You can use native views. So, for example, Google Maps, there's no Flutter. There's a Flutter. You can use Google Maps in Flutter, but it's still rendered using the platform Google Maps. So you can embed platform views in any part of your UI, and you can draw on top of them in Flutter as well. So it's the best of all worlds. Which, yeah, it is though. I've tried it. It is.
Good talk, thanks. Sorry in advance for this question. At WWDC 2020, when we get Swift UI for Android, are you going to be a Swift dev from then on, do you think? Sorry, that's a total troll question. You don't need to answer that.
So I have actually written Swift code for the first time, just like a few weeks ago, just because I was porting my app. The whole reason why I took up Flutter was that I could port one of my apps to iOS without needing to learn Objective-C or Interface Builder or any of that, because that was a fairly steep learning curve for what I wanted to do, and also because I didn't actually own a MacBook, so I did all my development on my PC. But yeah, I have written some Swift code for the native components, like using the hardware accelerometers and sensors and stuff, which I needed to do. But otherwise, yeah. So it was fine. I survived. It was good.
Any more questions, guys? No, thank you very much.
Okay, so Giant couldn't be here for the last part of CocoaHeads tonight, so I'm just going to conclude. Obviously, the next Stack Night, like you heard, is going to be next week on Wednesday night at Cognizant. It's 15 William Street. It's right down the street. It's basically William and Collins, or
There's
Little Flinders, something like that.
About 10 spots left if you want to come. So get your RSVPs in.
Yeah, Flinders Lane, okay. So really close to here, it's really no distance at all, and it's a great venue, and there's going to be a lot of hacking around, I'm sure, Swift UI and Flutter and all of these new technologies that really have broken through this year. It's going to be really exciting. The next drinks night is going to be 2 weeks from now, June 25th at the Imperial Hotel. I believe, Tubbs, you are the one that organizes that, no? Or you're... Okay. Since they tore down the Harry Potter installation, you're not really keen on the Imperial Hotel, right? And the next meetup is going to be next month, second Thursday of the month, like always, at YBA Ventures, so this place, again at 5:45. Jet, where is Jet right now? Jet is going to be the organizer next month, so please talk to him if you have any idea or any comment about how you want, if you have any idea, please go to him. And yeah, some of us will go to the pub right now, to the Irish Times, so please join us for over discussions and maybe more stupid questions from Baz. I'm looking forward to them. So yeah, this is Melbourne CocoaHeads, and thank you for coming. It's been a great night, I think, and really, I just want to emphasize that this is the first night of a new era, because this is the first night where there's not just a single person that has organized a night like Sean and Jesse did for year after year. And Gareth, okay. And so really, we want to hear from the community. If you want to help, if you have any idea, if you have any comment, if you have enjoyed the night, if you have more comments, or if you have suggestions, we want to hear about it, because this is something that's becoming part of all of us. So please let us know what you think, and please help, and hopefully it's going to go better and better. And please grab your bottles and bring them at the back if you can, and clean up your thing so that it can. And let's thank the sponsors again. Cognizant is a major sponsor. There was EDBD Apps, there was Latitude Financial, and what was the other silver sponsor? Okay, who knows? Anyway, sorry about that. Again, it's been rough. It's the first night of a new era. It can only go better from here, really.